Hey there, how's it going? My name's Kevin. Today we are going to talk about a technique that I think will be very useful for you guys, and that is called muting. So we're going to take a look at the different ways that you can do that either with your strumming hand or your fretting hand and how you apply that to chords. And we'll do a little bit of playing together so you guys have some repetitions to really work on this and get acclimated with this new technique. This is part of kind of a greater series slash playlist that we're putting together with different techniques. So day one-ish is muting. So let's get to it. All right, let's talk about the easier of the two techniques here, and that is going to be with our strumming hand. So quite simply, to mute with your strumming hand, you might already know this, but all you're gonna do is cover the strings with the palm of your hand. You want to make sure that you actually make contact with the strings so that they stop ringing. That's the essence of a mute. You want no sound. You don't want a little ting. You just want the sound to go and then completely cease. So where you would use that would be in a strumming pattern. So a really simple example would be if I were to use the strumming pattern down, up, mute, or you would see it written down, up, clap. And if I were doing that with a C chord, to mute, I would go down my finger, up with my finger, and then I have my hand still placed over the sound hole here so that I can make that mute. And that's an important factor right there, is when I come back up with my strum, my hand isn't all the way up here above the uke. My hand is still kind of right over the body where I can just kind of quickly clap down with my hand. So you don't need to be really far away when you do this, just nice and close. So down, up, clap, down, up, clap. So that's a simple way to mute with your strumming hand. Now, let's say the strumming pattern was a little more in-depth. Using the pattern down, down, up, mute, up, down, up. So that would sound like this. Down, down, up, mute, up, down, up. So another little component to this is, let's say right after the mute, you have a strum, like in this situation where you're going up, down, up. So I went down, down, up, mute. Now watch this. As I go to do my next up strum, my hand is already covering the strings, so I can just bring my index finger across, right from the mute. So I'll do that slow. Down, down, up, mute, up, down, up. So as you kind of apply this technique to different strumming patterns, think about those couple little shortcut tricks there that I gave you as you play. But that's all I got for you on the strumming hand muting. Let's talk about using our fretting hand now for muting. So a couple components to this, and I'm going to show you how this applies because it's not the same for every chord. There are 3 different ways to do this. The first one I'll give you is what I call using the extra finger. So let's say that you're playing a C chord and you want to mute that with your fretting hand. So I'm holding my C chord here, I'm having a good time, but I want to mute it. Well, when I go to mute it, I put my extra finger across. For me, that's my middle finger. So I'm kind of have my hand tilted here a little bit, and I lay my middle finger across the strings to mute that. So when I play down and then up, I mute. But there is a secret here that you need to know. What I did with my ring finger on the C chord to mute is I just decompressed the pressure that I had on the string. So if I were to keep that down while I tried to mute, I would still get that extra note. You've probably tried to mute at some point and heard that extra note ringing through. The trick is just release the pressure. So there should be no pressure on the strings. You're just touching them to get that muted sound. I play it, strum through, and then when I come up to mute, I decompress my ring finger off of the string on the A string, and I lay my middle finger down across. And you want to really make sure that you lay this flat. If you have any hump in your finger, one of the strings could start ringing. So this is something that takes time. Don't think that, you just have to knock this out in this first video. You need to spend some time with this and try with different chords. So when I do this technique, it's generally applied to any of the chords that use one finger. If I were to play A7, same thing. My ring finger is my extra finger here, so I can just take my ring finger and lay it across all of the strings in front of the chord, and I'm going to deaden the sound. So for the extra finger technique to fretted muting here, always use the additional finger and make sure that you release the pressure from the finger that's down on the string. Let's talk about the second way that you can mute with your fretting hand. Now let's say you're in a situation where you have a D minor or a D chord here on the top strings. Well, technically, if you have a strong pinky, tell me about it, I want to know. If you don't, you roll your hand. So how do you do that? So you're playing a D minor chord here. So what you do is, again, you release the pressure from your fingers, so you're just touching the string, and what I do is I just, what I said, kind of roll my hand down. So I play through the chord, and then when I want to mute it, I roll my hand down. So you can kind of see my thumb coming up. I'm not really trying to bring my whole arm up like this. I'm just kind of subtly bringing my hand forward so that I can mute those strings. So you should be able to do that if you just pluck through, strum through the chord. Try just deadening that chord out by rolling and decompressing. So this works well, like I said, for the D chord, D minor chord, any chord that's going to be on the top 3 strings where you have the open A string. This is a good way to do it. So again, a lot of this is situational, so you'll need to go through the chords and kind of take these examples and apply them to the different chords. Again, rolling technique is the second one you want to use. The next way that you can mute with your fretting hand is by using this finger that seldom gets used in chords, although it is the most important thing because it helps you to squeeze the neck. But let's say you're playing a G chord and you want to mute. I play through that chord, and now I need to mute this top string, and I also need to mute these bottom 3 strings. So to mute the bottom 3 strings, that's easy. I'm just gonna decompress here with my fingers. So now when I strum them, they are dead. I'm still touching the strings. I'm not losing contact, but they're muted. But what about this top string? So what I do is I just take my thumb and I kind of wrap over the top. Now I've muted the full chord. So this is a good technique to use for the G chord. If you're playing G7, same thing. You can also kind of bring the thumb over the top. Now I will say, you don't need to fully wrap your thumb around the top. You can just kind of set it on top of the neck and just let the kind of skin from your thumb press onto that top string. And when you do that, that will deaden the string and ultimately mute the chord. So that's something that you probably want to just practice really slow. Just kind of go through, play the chord, and then do the mute. Before you kind of get into incorporating this into progressions, it's nice just to kind of go chord by chord and kind of figure out your little roadmap of how you're going to mute based on these little techniques that I've given you here. So chords, again, that you can apply this to would be G, G7, E minor is another one that you would have to mute. And again, you can take your thumb and just kind of wrap it over the top so that it rests on the top of the string. The last one that I want to mention here, and it doesn't really need much of an explanation, because when you play a bar chord, which I know you guys love playing bar chords, so let's say you're playing a B flat chord here, which I know you guys all love, you've told me. You play that. Now to mute that chord, which you may have inadvertently muted part of this chord before, all you do is release the pressure from the neck. So when I play it, squeeze down, and then when I release pressure, it's muted. So bar chords are great if you want to do something with muted strums. I think that they're really easy to do once you kind of get the hang of it. So you can do some kind of cool stuff just by releasing the pressure as you play. So if you know some bar chords, try that. The key component is to really make sure that you're relaxing your hand as you do this. You know, it's a technique that even if you're kind of sitting in front of the TV sometime and you don't want to make any noise, you you can kind of just compress on the strings and practice getting that feeling of compress, decompress as you go. So those are both hands that you can use to mute. I hope this was helpful. All right, now let's put some of these techniques to use. So the strumming pattern that we're going to use for this little play along is down, up, mute, mute. So you'll just be going down, up, but the first two will be down, up, and then we're going to mute with our fretting hand, mute, mute. So the sequence of chords will be C. So in this one, we'll use our extra finger to mute this, which is our middle finger. Then we'll move to D minor. And in this one, we'll use the roll technique, where we're just going to kind of roll our fingers down to cover all of the strings. We'll move back to C, use the extra finger technique. And then finally, the G chord. And for the G chord, I'm going to use the thumb wrap technique. So also kind of rolling my hand down to roll my thumb over the top to mute that. So we'll do 2 times per chord. We'll go through the full progression twice. And we'll just go nice and slow so that you guys can really get a feel for this technique. I'll count us in with a 4 count. And just take your time. If you need to rewind this, feel free. I'm just going to really work on these muting techniques here. Here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4. Down, up, mute, mute. 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 Again. Down, up, mute, mute. Down, up, mute, mute, and C. Have some fun. Down, up, mute, and G. All right, let's do the same thing with a little bit more tempo so that's kind of more applicable to what a song would sound like. So here we go, same progression, same muting technique, just a little more tempo. Here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4. Down, up, mute, mute. Down, up, mute, mute. Back to C. And G. Back to C. You guys got this. D minor. Back to C. And G. Let's do it one more time. Mute, mute. Down, up, mute, mute. Down, up, mute, mute. Back to C. Home stretch. And on G. Resolve. Did you guys have some fun with muting? I know muting is not the word that, makes me think of fun, but I hope you guys learned something today, and I hope you're feeling a little bit more comfortable and confident in this technique. This is part of a greater series / playlist that we're putting together to cover a bunch of different techniques, hammer-ons, slides, pull-offs, so look out for more videos coming soon in this same realm. If you guys need some exercises, some other learning tools to help kind of further advance, jump over to allforuke.com. I have practice tracks that are audio tracks where you can play along with these different techniques right on your iPad or phone or tablet, computer, whatever you're playing on. So check those out. Make sure you're subscribed to the channel. Click the alert bell to find out when the next video is coming, and let us know in the comments below if you have any feedback about this video or questions. We're always looking to get better, and I love hearing from you guys. You're the source for everything. My name's Kevin, signing off. I'll see you next time. Take care.